This training will be in two parts, one for setting up seller signing appointments and the other for setting up buyers signing appointments. When setting up signing appointments for sellers, all you would need to do is call escrow to see if they can accommodate the date and time your seller can make it to escrow. Just because escrow is done out of a certain office does not mean you cannot go to another location to sign. It is not even uncommon for escrow to even come to you if the seller has challenges making it there. If representing seller, you always want to get a copy of the HUD-1 statement prior to going to signing. The reason for this is you want to make sure all the charges are correct. If you have reviewed the HUD-1 statement and everything is fine, you are on your way to signing. Make sure you inform the seller that they will need to bring a form of identification. If the seller needs to bring money to the table, make sure it is via cashier's check or by wire. Escrow can give you the wire instructions. All monies must be delivered to escrow no later than 3 days prior to closing. Signing for sellers usually is much quicker than buyers. A typical seller signing can take anywhere between 10 minutes to an hour at most. On average, about 30 minutes. Setting up showings for buyers will take a little more coordination between buyer, escrow, and buyer's lender if they are getting a loan. Typically, you want the buyer to sign both escrow documents and lender documents at the same time so that the buyer is not inconvenienced. Signing should be set with a minimum of 3 days prior to closing. Make sure the lender is ready to sign, as they are usually the last to be ready. Signing for buyers with a loan usually can take between 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how much questions the buyer has on the loan. Once you have the okay from the lender, schedule it with the buyer, escrow, and lender. Before going to escrow, make sure you get a copy of the HUD-1 statement to make sure all of the charges are correct. Inform buyer that they will need to bring in a form of identification and a cashier's check for funds to clear prior to closing. Wiring is fine as long as you get the wiring instructions from escrow. Remember, both documents from lender and escrow must be signed no later than 3 days prior to the scheduled closing date. Funds must also be there during that time also. As an agent for the buyer, it would be a good time to have them fill out a home exemption form if they plan to live in the property. This will help them get a break on property taxes. Just make sure they file it after they close. The deadline is September 30th of each year to be in effect for the coming year. After signing with seller or buyer, closing usually happens between 2 and 3 days after. Once that happens, congratulations, you have just closed your transaction.